Excited that we have so many folks signed up to join us today. As you are trickling in, go ahead and get settled in by sharing in the chat function, which we'll be using throughout the course of today's webinar. Let me know where you're tuning in from, and let Sharon know too. So I'm excited to introduce y'all to Sharon Podobnik Peterson, who is a Bossed Up certified trainer who I worked with in DC. You're in the DMV area, right?
I am. Yep.
And we are so excited to have you here, a fellow entrepreneur
Yes.
in the cadre. And I'm excited to continue this month's focus at Bossed Up, all about how to craft a career with passion and purpose. And that's really what today is all about, like how to make your passion your profession. Not an easy thing to do now or ever. So as you're trickling in, folks, just a quick housekeeping note. When you're saying hello to us in the chat, there's a drop-down menu that says to all panelists or to all panelists and attendees. Make sure to select all panelists and attendees so that we can all see it. So tell me where you're tuning in from. And before I hand it off to Sharon, tell me if you're a newcomer to Bossed Up. If so, I'm Emilie Aries. I'm the Bossed Up founder and CEO. It's so exciting to meet y'all. And I started Bossed Up 5 years ago this month, which is exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Sharon. And, you know, I'm doing a lot of reflecting right now about how far we've come and how far we have to go and what I want to do next with Bossed Up. Oh, hey, Melissa, I'm so glad you were here from the Boulder session. We just did a great workshop at CU Boulder all about assertive communication. But as by way of background, I should say, I started Bossed Up because I burnt out in the realm of politics and political organizing. Not because it wasn't my passion, it certainly still is. I was just debating politics in a heated discussion with some friends at their place for dinner last night, much to the, I think, chagrin. We have like a no Trump after dinner rule. But I started Bossed Up because I burnt out, because I did not realize that self-care and self-love can peacefully coexist with my big ambition. And since figuring that out and really crafting a career that worked for me from a holistic perspective, a happy, healthy, and sustainable career path, I knew that I wanted to devote my life to helping more people, and specifically more women, achieve that. Because we live in a world where women are still expected to be caring and kind and put everybody before ourselves, to be selfless. So today you are taking time, you're taking your most precious resource, time, and investing in yourself, which is an amazing first step to really realizing your passion as your profession. And I know Sharon here has done that herself, so I'll hand it over to her, but I will be here to help answer questions throughout today's conversation. As a reminder, we are recording this, so if you can't stick around all the way to the end, make sure to catch up at the end, because we'll be emailing you this recording and we'll be having some special offers for you and your friends at the very end of today's broadcast. In the meantime, I'll be managing questions throughout chat, and Sharon, if any clarifying questions come up, I'll be sure to pop in and ask them. Otherwise, we'll save them for the end.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Emilie. Everyone, I am so glad that you are here. Like Emilie said, time is one of our most valuable professions. Nope. Time is one of our most valuable assets, and I do not take that for granted. So thank you so much for tuning in, for being here, and for sharing yourself with me. I want this to be a super interactive webinar for you today, so please start taking advantage of the chat. I'm going to ask you to pop in there pretty often. Keep sharing where you're from, whether or not you've been a part of Bossed Up before. And like Emilie said, she and I actually share a lot of similarities, and I'll touch on this a little bit in the webinar, but I had a very similar experience where I just burned all the way out and had to kind of start from scratch, but we'll talk about what that looks like to take a look at what you're doing and change it into what you want to be doing. So whether you are a newcomer, welcome, 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 or somebody who has been at many of these webinars and conferences before, so glad that you are here. We are going to be talking about making your passion your profession today, which is super exciting. Like I said, my intention is to create an interactive and thoughtful webinar for you today, one that's going to leave you saying one of the following. Emilie, if you could forward to the next slide, hopefully you'll be saying one or the other of these. And my guess is that you already know which of these two you will be feeling at the end. And we're going to do an experiment here to find out. Emilie is going to go ahead and launch a poll. Which of these two summarizes how it says how you're feeling, that's my bad, how you think you will be feeling at the end of our time together. So go ahead and choose, how are you going to be feeling at the end of our webinar? The experiment here is to see whether or not you will be feeling this way at the end as well. So my guess, oh, okay, so we have some people saying, yes, feeling like Oprah, all kinds of happy right now. You are going to be excited at the end. If you chose A, then chances are you are already feeling good about what you're doing. You want some confirmation you are perhaps an overachiever, and maybe you want to turn key this webinar. Whatever it is, I hope you get what you're looking for, and I hope you feel this way at the end. On the other hand, if you are here and you're feeling like, number 2, shit, you're tired, you're burnt out, you're feeling overworked, all 3 of those perhaps, or you're feeling like you're on the precipice of a midlife crisis, that's okay, even if you're 25. You feel like you're not living your dream, whatever that thing is, it's okay. At least you know it, and you're gonna bring yourself to make a change. So I want you to go ahead and pop right back into that chat and tell me which of those things resonated with you already. Are you like, I think I'm on my path to living out my best life? Awesome. My passion is basically my profession. Awesome. I'm going to have some steps. Awesome. Or like, I have no idea where I'm starting. I have no idea what my next steps are. Whatever that thing is for you, pop it into the chat, because I promise you there is somebody else in this group already who is feeling exactly the same way. And it's good to know that we're not alone. So go ahead and drop in there. Now, whatever it is you choose, however it is you're feeling, my hope for you, my honest hope for you, is that this feeling intensifies. And yes, you heard me, intensifies, which if your thought was like, oh crap, shit, I hope that intensifies, and I hope it becomes, oh fuck. And the reason for that, excuse my French, is because tempered emotion does not cause change. Only coming to terms with the possibilities, both good and bad, and feeling it deep into your bones and allowing your heart to take over will be the thing that instigates you to create this change that you need in your life to live your best life and make the jump to make your passion your profession. Okay, I see, I feel shit, but I want to feel yes. I need some growth opportunities in my job. I see it working out in my head, but I don't know how to get it kickstarted. Yep, I feel all of that. Perfect. So keep dropping those in there. Thank you so much for getting engaged already and for taking the first step to get your life kickstarted in whatever way makes the most sense for you. So how the hell would I know anything about this? Emily, if you could go to the next slide, pretty please. Well, to be perfectly honest, I've been there. And if you just take a look at my faces, they say enough already. I have been overworked. I have been crying under my desk. I've been crying in the car during lunch. I've been crying on the way to work because I knew it was going to be that kind of day. And I've lived that life where I would get a stress headache simply by parking my car into the parking lot and walking through the front door. I know what it's like to feel directionless and to feel emotionless and to be terrified of that. And you'll see that top picture there was me as a director of academics at a charter school. I was an admin. I thought education was everything. And to be fair, still a big fan of education. But the way that I was participating in education was not one that made me happy. As you can see there, that is me on field day. And anybody who's been in education knows that field day comes with ups and downs. But my God, I was not having it. And the 2 pictures below that are some of the fakest smiles I think I have ever produced on my face. So perhaps you are feeling a little bit like that. I get it. I've been there. The thing about it is, next slide, please, I've also studied it. Because I am super curious, I've studied human development in the context of the human brain, in psychology, in interpersonal relationships, adult development, transformation, all of the which were absolutely fueled by my desire to understand myself a little bit better. Shout out to those of us who have probably taken every BuzzFeed quiz that there is out there because you understand. And now, yep, you're right on, Emily. I am working on it. I am long from arrived, and chances are we will probably never fully arrive and our best lives and our best selves. But I am absolutely working on it. So I just finished my program at Georgetown University for being an executive leadership coach. I started my own business as a coach and with a subscription box. The subscription box is purely focused on helping us to live better lives. And the picture down there is me getting married to the person who first saw this in me, who was my husband. He is the very first human who saw me for who I am, all of the things that I bring. And I married the man because he believed in me, and I needed that at the time. Shoot, I still need it, and I still love this man. But I think the point is we're all working on figuring out who we are, what makes us happy, and what the best things are that we can do for ourselves. I'm committed to being the exception, and chances are, because you are here, you are committed to being the exception as well. Now, here are some of the things that I know for sure in my heart of hearts. Number one, I love love. Next slide, Emily, please. Also, Emily, your video showing now. Your thing fell. So I love love. Love is love is love is love, and I love love. And that is one thing that I absolutely, positively know for sure. The second thing is that I love learning. I mentioned on the last slide, I worked as an educator. I have studied this. I have an insatiable desire to learn and grow, learn about everything, learn about myself, super curious about the world around me. I just love learning. And third, that love and learning is magic. You have seen it on the faces of children. I'm sure you know them, and what it's like for the light bulbs to go off. And that is what I live for. I live for the learning that comes and the love of yourself that comes from learning yourself. So I hate to break it to you, but we are all still that child that has those light bulbs going off. We are 7 years old on the inside, somewhere deep inside us. And deep down, we are dying to be carefree and curious and caring and childlike, and to love and to learn and to love learning, because that to me is magic. And that is, for me, my reason for being. So we're here today to talk about passion and profession and reason for being. And these are my reasons for being. So what? So what? In the time that we have remaining, I want you to understand two huge things. Why focusing on what you're doing is the most important thing that you could do for your longevity, and what makes up your reason for being. What are these things? So we're going to talk about both of these. And if you walk away with nothing else, I want you to understand why this is so incredibly important and what these things are. So number one, why? Why is focusing on your longevity, your health and happiness, and your passion and profession the most important thing that you can do? Now, chances are you already know what regret you are going to have on your deathbed. Mortifying? Yes. True? Most likely. So we're going to do a little experiment right now. And I invite you to join us in this experiment, if you so choose, and to let your heart speak. So here's what this is going to look like. We're going to do just a little bit of breathing into our heart. And then we're going to focus on one particular question that is going to come out for you. So if you feel comfortable doing so, hopefully you are in a chair, you're somewhere comfortable where you can close your eyes. If you can close your eyes, this would be a lovely opportunity, and I invite you to fully arrive with us. I've been kind of talking a mile a minute, and I know that I speak quickly, I think quickly, I do things very quickly, and we're going to take a second to slow down. To absolutely slow down and arrive, and to let our hearts speak. So if you have a chance to close your eyes, go ahead and do so. And we are going to breathe into a count of 5, hold it at the top, breathe out to a count of 5, hold it at the bottom. And this entire time, I want you to be breathing into the space around your heart. So as you're inhaling, literally envision the air coming in through your heart. There's tons of neuroscience and science of why this works, but trust me on it for now. Breathe into the area around your heart. And as you're exhaling, breathe out of the area around your heart. So I'm going to join in on this too. Inhale to a count of 5, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it at the top. Exhale to a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. Inhale into your heart for a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. Exhale to a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hold it. Focus even more on your heart. Inhale. Exhale. And focusing on just your heart. Let your heart speak right now. What will your regret be at the end of your life? Go ahead and pop that into the chat box. What will be your regret at the end? Chances are you already know what it is. Share it in the chat with us. Mine, I have 2 that I'll share with you. My first fear that I have, that I am afraid I'm going to have at the end of life, is that I'm going to be sad I didn't spend more time with my family. I work really hard, but I don't spend a lot of time with my family. And I'm worried about that one. And my second one is that I'm toying with this, but I'm worried that at the end of my life, I will say that I can't believe I was so scared to share myself and to be vulnerable and authentic and be seen for who I am. I see folks starting to drop them in. Thank you to Leah, Christina, and Kelly for starting to drop those in. Fearing failure, afraid of failure around passions, not making an impact on your work. These are all real. These are so, so real. So thank you for letting your heart speak. And listen to your heart. Chances are your heart knows, right? So we're going to take this right now and we're going to invert it with gratitude. Go ahead and write down what you said somewhere. You can abbreviate it. You can write it shorthand. You can do whatever you need to do, but write it like small, somewhere on the corner of your paper. Write down whatever it is. Not taking enough risks, worked too much, whatever the thing is, just write it down somewhere. This is your first why. Now, scribble that out. I know I just had you write it. Scribble it out. Scribble it all the way out. And in bigger letters, bolder letters, right under that, flip it around with gratitude. So for instance, I said, I'm sad, I'm worried I'm not going to spend enough time with my family. In bigger, bolder letters on the next page, wherever you want, I am so thankful that I spent so much time with my family. Turn this regret into your intention. Turn it into something that you are speaking about in the present at the end of your life. My other one is that I'm scared to share who I am authentic and vulnerably, and I'm worried that I'm waiting too long to share that. I'm going to flip it around with gratitude. I am so thankful that I accepted myself and shared myself with others. Without it, there's no way that I would have had as many loving, caring, deep relationships without bringing me. Invert it. Write it big. And if you feel comfortable, you shared your regret, go ahead and share it. Yes, I'm taking so many risks. It feels awesome and the outcomes are so rewarding. That is exactly what I'm talking about. Drop yours in there so that we can share in your future happiness with you. What is your why? I'm loving so deeply that loss hurts all the more. Okay. I am so thankful I learned to let go of fear because my life was so authentically mine. Yes. And I'm loving this all caps. That is, you are like screaming the happiness and that makes me so much happier. Perfect. Keep them coming. This is your why. This is absolutely your why. So as you keep dropping those in there, I'm going to keep moving on. Emily, if you could pop onto that next slide. Now, the most common regret people have at the end of their lives are, number one, I wish I hadn't spent, oops, nope, you were right. Yep, exactly there. I wish I hadn't spent so much time working. I already hear that coming up. People spend so much time at work. We spend a third of our lives at work, and you know that that is not necessarily the happiest place to be if you are not enjoying it. And by God, you deserve to enjoy what you do. The second most common regret, thank you, Emily, is I wish I had been more loving to the people who matter the most to me. Now, in blue zones are the place in the world where people tend to live up until 100 or more. These people have figured it out. They know how to be happy. They know how to surround themselves with people that they care about. And they spend a lot of time thinking through their ikigai, their reason for being. Now, there's about 5 of these blue zones throughout the world. I highly recommend you check out the book Blue Zones, look them up. There's 5 of them. I'm going to talk about the one in Okinawa just because that's the book that I read and I'm obsessed with it, low-key obsessed. But people live a lot longer when they open up, share their gifts with others, and contribute fully, doing what they love to do and living in their reason for being. And number 3, I wish I had lived my own dream. And this is all about the passion and your profession and how to marry the two of them so that you love what you do. Because when you love what you do, you never want to retire. You don't need to retire because you love what you do. And to be honest, if you were to retire, you would probably end up doing this thing anyway. That is the magic of marrying your passion and your profession. It speaks to so many of these whys and helps us to eliminate so many of the regrets that we have later in life. In turn, this satisfaction brings you happiness. And in turn, your purpose. And your purpose keeps you driven and moving. And when you are moving around and doing what you love, your body stays active, it stays alive, it wants to stay alive longer, and it does these things. It is magic. You can read all about it. I'm not going to get into all of those details, but the purpose of this is to figure out what your why is so that you have a reason for getting up every single morning so that you can live happily ever after. And I'm joking, but only a little bit. Next slide, please. So great, Sharon, but what is a reason for being and what makes it up? You've heard us say a lot of them already, whether it is family, surrounding yourself with the people that you care about, doing what you love, education for me, love, whatever the thing is. But fundamentally, according to Viktor Frankl, who is a renowned Viennese psychologist, he's an Auschwitz survivor, he's done a lot of thinking around a reason for being and what makes that up. He's also done a lot of work on suicide because those are related. And he says that your reason for being is literally the reason you did not commit suicide today. Why did you wake up today? Next slide, please. Go ahead and drop that into the chat. Why did, honestly, be real. Why did you wake up today? Why did you wake up? And if you're feeling empty, frustrated, anxious, it can be really hard to identify what that thing is. I get it. I've been there. But it's up to us to decide to make meaning of this crazy life and what we live for. To keep my commitment to others. Awesome. Awesome. If you suffer from Sunday scaries, Sunday neurosis, whatever it is you call that feeling on Sunday night, generally that anxiety comes from the realization of Monday work and the realization that we're kind of living an empty life without the obligations of a work week. We don't necessarily have that thing that pulls us through the rest of the week, and we feel it most intensely on Sundays. When we identify that we have significantly misaligned our work week from the rest of our desired life. So what is your reason for being? Drop that in there. Why did you wake up today? What is the thing that keeps you moving even when everything else seems to be falling apart? What is the thing that calls to you? Next slide, please. I want to introduce the Japanese concept of ikigai, which is your reason for being. Now, there's a lot going on in this slide and in this image, but I think it's all worthwhile. Your ikigai is where your love, what you're good at, what you're paid for, and what the world needs all come together to create your reason for being. Now, this right now may not be your profession. Hell, you might even be thinking like, could I even be paid for whatever this thing is? But to be honest, it's up to you. And we're going to figure this out together wherever you are on this. Print it out, fill it out like a Venn diagram, and consider for yourself what these things are for you. Blank it out and put in, what are those things that you love? What are those things that you are good at? And when you combine what you love and what you're good at, those things become your passion. If you have something that you're paid for right now and that the world needs, maybe you're a doctor, you're paid for it and the world needs it, that's your vocation. Maybe you don't love it, maybe you're not even good at it, but that's your vocation. And the goal is to get closer and closer and closer to that center piece where you are able to actually identify what your ikigai is. So drop it into the chat here. Where do you see yourself in this chart? For example, I was a teacher, right? I was really good at it. I was getting paid for it. And I think that the world absolutely needed it. So at the bottom, you'll see I was missing that love circle, right? So I was just outside the love circle in that space where it says comfortable, but feeling of emptiness. That's where I was. And I stayed there for 10 years because the world needed it and I was good at it and I was getting paid for it. But there's a sense of emptiness. And when you add that emptiness to the overwhelm, to the constantly overworked, that emptiness and overworked creates breakdown. Where are you? Maybe you're doing what you love and doing what you're good at and the world needs it, but you're not getting paid for it. You're delightful, you're full, but you're missing out on wealth. So Shannon identifies with that. She's in that delight and fullness, but no wealth place. I get it. I'm curious, Shannon, what do you do? Maybe the world needs it and you love it, but you're not good at it. That happens too. And so the purpose here is to figure out how to get closer and closer to that center where all four of these things align. You love it, you're good at it, the world needs it, and you get paid for it. When you get closer and closer and closer, you know that you are on the right track. My personal belief is that people have many of these, and it's just about figuring out the right one at the right time for you. You are currently, you right now, are in the right place at the right time, doing exactly what you need to be doing. And I say that even if it feels like poop right now, because you need to have this experience to know what's next for you. I love this graphic in particular because you can see exactly what the next step would be. If you love it and the world needs it and you're getting paid for it, but you're not good at it, you know what to add. Take another class, do what you got to do, get good at it. If you're comfortable, but you're empty, what is the next thing? What is the next step? Take a look at that, like the circle right around Ikigai, and figure out what that next step would be for you. Keep dropping those into the chat. I really appreciate it. Same as Shannon, I know my passion, but not sure how to get paid for it. Rock on. I'm good at what I do, but I don't love it. I get paid for it, but not well. Dude, that is real. That is real. To be good at something and to get paid for it, that is your absolute profession. Absolutely. Now, how do you take a step over towards being mission driven? How do you get some love in there, find out what the world needs? That's the next step, right?
I also want to jump in there for a second to ask you about that specific question, because it seems like a lot of what I'm seeing in chat reminds me of something we talk about at Boss Up Bootcamp about this iterative cycle of creating your sense of identity as the boss of your own career. Mm-hmm. Just as like a follow-up question, I know you've got more to share. This is such a great, I love this content. What do you think the key is in chiseling away at finding that ikigai? Like, to me, it's this iterative cycle that we have to get out of planning and thinking and worrying and being afraid to doing and doing and doing and doing some more. What are your thoughts on like how to find your way towards that inner circle?
Yes. So I got essentially 3 ideas here, and I might add some more based on what you've said. Sure. But you kind of hinted at one, right? Like, it's an iterative cycle. So have some patience, right? Yeah. And I highly recommend writing this stuff down, guys, because these are like kind of the steps. I'm not a huge fan of steps because it's an iterative process that we learn as we go. But number 1 is to absolutely, positively have patience and compassion for yourself as you are going through this iterative process, because it is all a learning process. My step 2, to be honest, is if you cannot figure this out independently, listen, I get it. No problem, no harm, no foul, get a coach. And I say get a coach because our friends and family are way too wrapped up in this to be truly helpful, right? They're so subjective on this that they have their own opinions about what's possible and what's not possible already, and what's possible and not possible for us. They have opinions about us. And a coach comes with that objectivity to say, listen, here's what I hear you saying. Yeah. What are the blockages for you? And sometimes our families kind of love us into submission and project their fears onto us, right? So Step 2, get a coach. Number 3 is consider your flow and the things that truly bring you to life. So what is the thing that you could do for hours and hours on end? Forget to eat, forget to pee, forget to worry. Key there, forget to worry. Because if you realize that you are no longer worrying about all of these other things, especially Emily, like you were just saying, we get caught up in all of these fears and worries. What is the thing that when you're doing that thing, fear and worry just does not exist for you anymore? Figure out what that is, because that is a glimpse. That might not be the thing, right? That might not be the whole thing, but extract that. So for example, when I was an educator, I love learning. I love people. I love teaching. I love all of those things. But the system and structure that I was in didn't work. So like pick out the pieces that are working for you and figure out how to take those and expand them in other places, right? And keep doing that.
Someone in chat actually said something very close to that, which is like, I'm close, but something is still lacking. And I always feel like extracurricular experimentation is where it's at. Like, don't quit your day job if you don't like find it toxic and miserable. You know what I mean? Like find opportunities for experimentation on a volunteer capacity, on a side hustle capacity, on just a project capacity. And you can learn so much about yourself.
Totally.
And I love what you said about patience. I just wrote, because I just finished my manuscript for my book.
Congrats.
Thank you. I wrote about patience and impatience, because part of what I think keeps women stuck is perfectionism. And we know this, right? We know that until our plan is perfect, we feel like we can't move forward. And I always say there's this balance between patience with yourself on that journey of getting better, but impatience with yourself in terms of kicking your ass and just saying it's good enough to move forward. You know, like don't accept I have to just sit here until it's perfect and then start writing or then start doing or then start speaking. Like you've got to move forward and be impatient with yourself because of those deathbed regrets, just like you were saying.
Yep. And I would offer like bias to action, right? So perfect is the absolute enemy of done. And I kind of live by that because perfectionism has been my thing and it's painful. Yeah. But perfection is the enemy of done. Get this shit done. And beyond that, start with some little bets, right? Little Bets is one of my favorite books. It's literally like do one little tiny thing and see how it feels. Yeah. You should not ever spend 3 years coming up with a business plan that looks 3 years out without testing it first. Like do one thing, because you might get 6 years down the line and your business plan might have been perfect and you are living that life and you're going to hate it. And there's no way to know that if you spend 3 years planning and 3 years executing what it's going to be like in 6 years. Do something little, bias to action, take the little bets, go step by step by step and iterate, because you will every single extracurricular, every single project, every single hobby, figure out what some of these things are and like plop it into this graph to see like, well, the world needed that, but I hated it. Well, I was good at that, but I didn't really enjoy it. Figure out what those things are, because you're going to learn, especially once you're able to see a list of all of these things, what the common themes are, right? And that might translate somewhere completely, completely different into a world that you never even envisioned for yourself.
I love it. I'll let you get back to it.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I appreciate it. But the one other thing that I would add to that is I hope that you are audacious enough in asking for what you want from this world, that you are willing to step out of your comfort zone, try a new project, ask your box for some side thing just to test it out, or to start your own club with your friends, or whatever your audacious ask is. You should be slightly afraid probably to say this out loud just yet. And if you do that, you know that you are on the precipice of something wonderful and brave and courageous and scary and big magic. Yes, I literally just finished reading that book. And this is a secret. For anyone, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but I run a subscription box company and it is all about women empowerment and reading books. And our next theme is big magic. If you are a fan of that, I highly recommend it. I'll leave all my information in there, including the link to the subscription box and big magic, all of that stuff. But I am all about it. Perfectionism is fear in fancy shoes. You have got that right. It is the thing that we are terrified about, but that's okay. So be audacious. I hope you're scared to say the thing out loud. Plan and just do the damn thing. Do not spend more time planning than you do doing. Just go and do the thing. For example, I will share with you what my declaration was for myself. I'm going to pull it up here so I don't get it wrong. But essentially, I came up with a declaration for myself around who I want to be, what I want to do, and the impact that I can have on this world. And for me, it bridges all of these things: what I love, what I'm good at, what the world needs, and what I can be paid for. And my hope for you is that you can come up with the one that speaks to you. And let it come from your heart. Don't spend too much time in cognition around this, because then you're going to get a lot of the like fears and scaries and like Brene Brown style, like gremlins creeping in. When your heart speaks, you're coming from a place of love. Let your heart speak. So I went through that process. And for me, my declaration is to partner with overworked, tired women to see a new, inspiring, and sustainable future for themselves. So I partner with women to help you discover within yourself the permission you need to stand in your authentic leadership so you can experience the relief that comes with being your most powerful, genuine self. That is the thing that speaks to me. That is what I'm good at. That's what I love to do. The world needs it. How many tired women are there out there who just want to stand in their own like personal power, and I can be paid for it? That is the thing that speaks to me. At some point, we probably don't have time for it now. Spend some time thinking about what your declaration is. What do you stand for? What is the thing that summarizes all of these for you? If you already know it, rock on, go ahead and toss it into the chat. Even if you have an inkling of an idea of what that might be, go ahead and toss it into the chat. It is worth pursuing, and it's worth figuring out, pulling all the strands until you get that sentence that really resonates with you. So now that our time is coming to about a close, I'm sure you have some other burning questions, thoughts, all of that stuff. What I am going to ask from you also is to pop into the chat and give me these 2 responses, because I want this to be super helpful and beneficial for you. Like I mentioned, time is a precious, precious asset. Pop in there and tell me what about today resonated with you the most. You've just spent 37 minutes on here with me. What soundbite, what quote, what saying, what idea resonated with you the most? What is going to stick with you? And what have you learned about yourself in today's webinar? There's been a lot here. We've talked about flow, we've talked about passion, we've talked about the difference between profession and vocation and figuring out how to get a step closer to the Ikigai. What are you learning about yourself as we go through this process, right? Because it's not good enough for us to walk away and say, oh, I heard about this really cool thing called Ikigai. It was awesome, but I don't really see how it applies to me. If that is the truth, then I have failed in my job today. So please pop in there and tell me, what have you learned about yourself in today's webinar? I want this to be incredibly useful. And as you're dropping these in, please know that the conversation absolutely does not stop here. It is hard work, and it can be really hard to do independently. So I am here for you. Please let me know. You do not need to go through this alone. Reach out. I'm here to help. I mean it. And there's probably 50 other women in this group who are feeling like you are, because this is a really common experience. We experience this as women. We experience this as employees and workers trying to figure out what it is that we want to do with our lives. And we don't need to go through this alone. So pop it in there. Share how you're feeling. You love the diagram. Awesome. It can help you plan next steps. That is exactly the point of this. The things that you've enjoyed doing the most have some shared characteristics. That is absolutely the point. You're going to figure out what these themes are as you're going through. That is perfect. I love to hear that. What is the thing that I don't worry while I'm doing it? Absolutely. Perfectionism, that speaks to everybody. I'm so glad to hear that. Keep popping those in there. And like I mentioned, if you do need a coach, please reach out to me and let me know how you're doing. Yep, Emily, you can go ahead to the next one. And this is where we come back around full circle. So how are you feeling right now? We voted at the beginning to say, how do you think you're going to be feeling at the end? Are you going to be like, yes, I am on my way, I feel like I'm doing good? Or are you like, shit, shit. Yep, right on. I thought I was going to be feeling like, what do I do? Where do I start? And yep, that's how I'm feeling. Whatever it is, go ahead and pop it in there, and we're just going to compare. Oh, I love this. Let go of the internal noise and just gonna move on. Ooh, okay. So we have a couple of extra people feeling like shit this time around
You know
rather
what?
than yes.
I feel like this happens when you're like, I know what I need to do. Shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, tell me if
Yes.
that resonates in the chat, because you're like, oh my God, I have been stalling. I have been paralyzed. I have been consumed by fear, and shit, I just need to keep moving. Right. And I
Mm-hmm.
totally get that. I think Leah's question here, I'd be curious what you say about that, because Kate's saying the same thing. I need to spend some, like, she's saying, I see what I'm lacking, but not sure how to break out of it.
I would be curious to hear what you mean by break out of it. Is it break out of this rut? And go ahead and post in there. What do you mean by break out of it? Is it a rut that you're in? Is it a like pattern of thought that you are in? What
And
is the thing that you're hoping to break out of?
And then it's funny because they're all saying, like, yes, I've been paralyzed by my fear. This is spot
Yeah.
on. I've been consumed by fear. I think a lot of times we need to, it's not like we didn't know this, but we needed to hear it from somebody else. We needed to get that permission / kick in the ass to say, it doesn't need to be 100% ready to be my next step. And just having another person, a coach, or even a community of courage like we've built at Bossed Up to say,
Yep.
you got this, or let's troubleshoot it together, or let's brainstorm it together, let's hold each other accountable. You know, we don't need to do this alone. I think that's so key.
None of us are in this alone. That is the one. I mean, I think every single person, Emilie, you've experienced this. I've experienced this. If you are in, by virtue of joining this webinar, we are all in this together because we've experienced this. Absolutely. And if you need someone to talk to, the entire Courage community is there. We are here for you. If you're trying to figure out where to focus your energy, what your next steps are, whatever the thing is, know that you have an entire community cheerleading for you in your corner, ready to champion you because you deserve to cry happy tears because you love what you do and you're proud of yourself for getting out of this like perfectionistic cycle of worry and fear and all of these things.
Can we also address the money component for a second? Because there's a lot of privilege wrapped up in like, just pursue your passion, like take risks, just run the gamut. And obviously that's not what we're trying to say here.
Right.
The hidden fear and the hidden paralysis is, I got bills to pay, I got mouths to feed.
Mm-hmm.
How do you break out of the fear of, if I pursue anything else, I'm going to go broke tomorrow?
So I'm so glad you said that because I didn't even realize that I haven't spoken directly to that point, which is this does not need to happen tomorrow in terms of like quit your job and do the damn thing tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it does not have to be wrapped up in money in that way. So I am all the way a fan of side hustles.
Yeah.
I am all the way a fan of like little glimpses for now until you figure it out, right? So like whatever that is at work that is the thing, right? So like when I was in education, the thing that I weirdly love to do was to create the master schedule. I don't know why. It's like playing Sudoku to me. I don't know what it is, but I love that, right? Yeah. And so even just while you are currently in your day job, figuring out what those things are that you love and spending time like drawing it out and picking out like, what is it about this thing that you love to do? Because I don't recommend that you quit your job tomorrow.
Right.
I just truly don't. Reality exists.
Right.
Bills need to be paid. Healthcare is real. Like all of these things are real and present and part of our lives. Please don't go ahead and quit your job tomorrow. Like figure it out. What is it about what you want to do? What is the next step? And take that.
And then the other thing I would add to that is sometimes short-term financial sacrifices, setbacks, learning to live on a smaller budget, making it a family commitment, saying to the family, mama needs a career pivot because mama has needs and passions too. And saying, you know, we're doing this, we're excited about this, we're making a short-term investment. And if it doesn't pay off in 2 years, if it doesn't pay off in 3 years, if it doesn't pay off in 5 years, mama can go back to her corporate day job. Because I have seen many people, including people who have worked for me, come in as assistants. And Emmy just left this past week after 2.5 years with me because she wanted to get into leadership, diversity, HR development work. And now she's banking 6 figures in her ideal industry because she took a short-term sacrifice I'm not saying she went broke, but she hustled for 2.5 years and, we're not making bank here.
Yeah.
And she parlayed that into more money doing what she loved than you ever thought is possible. So if you're really committed to honing your craft and pursuing your passion, I did the same shit. I went from making really good money placing Facebook ads for political candidates for a year, saying, wow, I cannot be in this industry. This is totally not cool with me. And I didn't even talk to a single voter this year. And I just spent millions of somebody else's money on online ads. Like, no, I can't do this, even though the money's good. And it's hard when you've got children. I get it. It's hard when you are taking risks that don't just impact you, but impact the people you love most. But sometimes those risks pay off. And research shows that men are willing to take those risks and bet on themselves at a higher rate than women are. And it's because we live in a world where we don't familially, culturally, socially, we don't give women permission to say, I'm betting on myself. It's going to take a little while, but I'm going to long-term be coming out on top on this. And how powerful of a lesson is that for your children? That's what this week's podcast is all about with Deb Haaland, who's a single mom who might be the first ever Native American woman in Congress.
Awesome.
She went to law school with a newborn. She invested herself and that meant living on food stamps. And you know what? Her daughter is stronger for it because her daughter has seen in her mother a come-up story, and like we should all give ourselves that willingness to bet on ourselves, not only for ourselves, which we deserve, but for the model it sets for our children too.
And I would also argue, like, all of these are amazing points, Emily. Thank you. And I think there's this mentality as women that we are sometimes like martyring ourselves for a cause, right? Like, we have to do this because we have to pay the bills. And I completely agree. I understand that. But there's an element of martyrdom here where like we don't see ourselves in the same light as like, I deserve to be happy. Mm-hmm. And case in point, like my story absolutely reflects that in terms of like, I did not get to the point where I quit my job until I realized the impact of my unhappiness on other people. And so like, for those of us who are stuck in this rut, you're like, well, it's just me. It's okay. Like I can like make it work.
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes you have to make it work for a certain period of time to do what you need to do. But at the same time, like this unhappiness doesn't just live with you. It has a huge impact on the people around you. And like, how powerful is it for people in your life who are also in that rut to see you say, I am worth it. So maybe it's your kids, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your boss who's also unhappy and you feel that every day. Mm-hmm. For him to see or her to see you say, actually, I deserve to be happy and I'm going to go do something about it. That impacts everybody that you've met. You would not believe how many people came up to me after I quit my job. And let me say too, when I say quit my job, I mean, I had 2 jobs and I scaled it down to 1 so I could start my other one, right? So I'm not like I said, I don't believe in like quitting whole hog here. But you wouldn't believe how many people after I announced that I was starting my own business who were like, shit, that's awesome. Like, I wish I could do that. And that wish I could do that. There's so much wrapped up in that.
Yeah.
Right?
And it makes so much. Feel like, well, what do you think? You think I just like woke up one day and felt entitled to do this? You know what I mean? Like I'm scared shitless myself. I get that a lot too.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying every day. And it's so worth it because you get to do what you want to do. Right. Yeah. And so there's this audacity of hope, right? Audacity of belonging. Like this, I think Big Magic talks about it, right? She talks about I think she calls it the entitlement of belonging, the arrogance of belonging, something like that. But how do you stand in your own, like almost arrogance of like, I absolutely am entitled to be happy in this moment. Yeah. And it feels audacious. It feels like entitlement, but like, girl, you are entitled to be happy.
Yeah.
Just, like,
I love that.
With that.
I also want to address what's going on in the chat room right now, because there's this sort of, I don't want to call it a scarcity mindset, although I think it's related, but this idea like, well, I don't even have the ability to walk away from a well-paid corporate job.
Yeah.
Or, I get by, but that's it. I think there's so much we can do to make increasing our income a priority.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on what you're willing to do to make that happen. It's also, I mean, we live in a tough economic time where wages have been stagnant for a long time, even though we're not in a recession anymore. It's not easy to make a buck in this world. I'll acknowledge that. But where are you spending your time and energy? Is it 100% devoted to doing your job that you hate right now? Because if so, that's got to change. You know, how can you dial in 75%? Like Leah's saying, I'm sort of faking it right now, or fine, fake it. Spend 30% of your energy and time on finding your next job, you know, or pursuing your next step. Because the reality is that none of this shit, moving towards your ikagi, I don't know how
Ikigai,
moving towards that center takes a lot of invisible effort that nobody else is going to hold you accountable to.
And I think Elizabeth Gilbert in Big Magic, apparently this is all about Big Magic too, right? Because there's so much gold in there. But she says, treat it like your affair, right? So like if you were having an affair right now, you would find your 15 minutes to do what you got to do, right?
Wow.
Like you find ways to sneak in some happiness.
Yeah.
But what if your affair was with yourself? You would find 15 minutes to sneak away and do what you need to do and spend some time focusing on your health and happiness. So like, what if it were your affair? How would you treat this differently?
I love that, because we're already so overwhelmed and we are already shouldering a lot of the emotional labor at work and at home, and a lot of the caring labor at home as women. It's a radical act to say, for the next week, every single day, I'm going to do something to move my career transition forward. And honestly, we could talk all day about that. I think the key that you're covering today is identifying which direction you got to go in, which is the first biggest hurdle. And then the second, if you really want to break it down step by step, the free Bossed Up Life Tracker tool is all about that. The Courage community on Facebook that you are about to be invited to, if you're not in already, when I send out the replay via email, is all about that. Bossed Up Bootcamp, the best thing I do, the weekend-long training that's for women figuring out how to navigate and make a career transition possible, all about that. We got resources on that. But step one is what you're tackling today. Step one is figuring out, okay, what's working in my life right now and what ain't? Where do I need to steer this ship next?
And I highly recommend, if you haven't seen the talk, I think his name's Simon Sinek. He does a start with why. Your what will come if you know your why.
Right.
Start with your why and figure it out. Actually, can you go back for a hot second? So my guess, if you are on this webinar, is that you are the kind of person who reads books, listens to podcasts, comes to things from Bossed Up, and spend some time getting deep and like mindful with yourself, because you are already invested in this, right? And my suggestion to you, if you could go on to the next slide, is to spend some time going internally, right? So books, podcasts, all of that is getting external into you, right? Like, I want to hear what you've done. How do I do this? What do I do? The value here is on going inside, right? We need to figure out what is underlying all of this stuff, what is holding us back, whether it's the money or the time, or that we don't believe that we deserve to have an affair with each other, or we don't believe that big magic exists. Whatever the thing is for you, you deserve to love what you do. And it's time to go inside and figure out like what is actually the competing commitment. Most often when we don't make a step forward, it's because there's a competing commitment. Not that we're not committed to this thing, but we have a separate competing commitment that is hidden deep within our values that we haven't even identified yet to be able to move forward. So I am offering to you a free 30-minute session for Boss Up participants to call me, and we will spend 30 minutes. You've spent an hour with me now. I'm going to spend 30 minutes talking to you about your specific context and about what it is you want to do. Some consequences, side effects may include, you may realize that you actually do not want things to be different. You may realize that what you are doing is the habit. Your mom was unhappy, your dad was unhappy, your siblings are unhappy, your friends are all unhappy, and shoot, to be part of that club, I need to be unhappy too. Ooh. Maybe that's your competing commitment. But there's no way to know unless we spend some time getting to whatever that thing is to figure out what is actually stopping you. What is stopping you from loving on yourself and having an affair with yourself and spending some time? Give me a call. And if you are already a yes and you know that you want to have a conversation with me, work with me. You can book me anytime. I have some profiles on Vivica World. You can book a 3-month package with me. You can book a 6-month package with me. All of that is absolutely lovely. I have some prices that are down there for you for people who are on this call right now. And because you are, hopefully if I've done my job, you are fired up and you are like, I need to do something about this and I want to do it right now. So I've already discounted all of my prices there for you. If you book in the next 30 minutes, I'll give you 35. So it's 2:00 on the nose. If you book in the next 30 minutes, I'll give you 20% off these prices. And if you book in the next 24 hours, because you got to think about it, which I also understand, I'm still going to give you 10% off. These prices will be valid until Friday at 5 p.m. Take advantage of it. If you are feeling it now, then you know that this is the right step for you. Dude, just call me. Like, let's figure this out because it's the next step, right? And this is an investment, and sometimes there's time and money involved, and that is okay, but it is up to you. If you're like, I'm not a yes just now, cool, no pressure, I don't care. That is just fine. You do you. Take the 30-minute call anyway. Happy to talk to you. If you're a yes, let's do this.
Awesome. Sharon, thank you so much for spending your precious time and sharing your expertise with us today. We really appreciate it. And I appreciate each and every one of you who've taken the precious resource that is your time and shared it with Sharon and I today. Here at Bossed Up, we are committed to providing as much content to help you move forward in your career as affordably as possible, including free. So I really appreciate Sharon for making that possible today. And I appreciate each and every one of you. I get emails every day from women who are like, here's how Bossed Up webinars changed my life, changed my career, or here's how your content or your podcast have changed my life. It's beautiful, it's amazing, it's powerful stuff. But there's two options here. I always say there's the DIY method, right? Do it yourself, do it alone, do it hard, and sometimes do it slower. And when you're on a super limited budget, that's the only option you got. And I totally respect that. And we've got options for you. Bossed Up has tons of free resources, this webinar included. When you are ready to accelerate your transition, when you are sick of feeling stuck, when you know that the way you've been working is not working and it's time to bring in some outside influence to help you get out of that rut, this is the community to do that with. Whether you move forward with Sharon or decide to join us at Bossed Up Bootcamp, the weekend-long program I mentioned earlier, I'll be sending you via email some more details on the 2 more boot camps we've got coming up this year in DC this September and LA this November. We have scholarships available, and because you tuned into our webinar today, you'll get a discount code good through Friday as well. So don't delay. If you're ready to take that next step in a community of courage that has your back with tons of expert trainers like Sharon available to you, make it happen. Do it for you, do it for your children, do it for your future. Thank you so much, Sharon, for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll be in your inboxes real soon, and I can't wait to keep bossing with y'all.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.